My experience of using evidence to inform policy, I guess the mainstay impact from the research that I conducted, so this was in Cambodia on domestic violence law, was really in the post-grant phase of my ESRC DFID grant. So the ESRC DFID grant was funded between 2012 and 2015 and looked at the implementation and enforcement of the country's first ever domestic violence law. So what was working, what wasn't working from the perspective of victims in particular. So one of the things that was key in terms of the findings is that victims very rarely have the ability to access justice in the court system. So I had lots of interview transcripts, lots of women's testimonials that would just remain within the local kind of knowledge, but wouldn't actually kind of reach the courts. So with funding from the Foreign Office after the grant, I ran an event with one of the universities in Phnom Penh, the capital city, with law students. So these were students who were doing undergraduate law degrees and who had never studied domestic violence law. They'd studied many other laws, but not domestic violence law. And a bit like mock trials, they do client consultation competitions. So this is where teams compete against each other, and they do so by sharing their counselling skills with a victim of a particular crime, who they try and kind of advise what legal routes are open to that person. So we organised the first ever client consultation competition. After the month of training, the students met in a large auditorium at the university and 100 students were watching the 6 teams compete. And the cases were drawn from the ESRC DFID testimonials of victims that ordinarily wouldn't reach such a space, be it a law court or be it an auditorium, in which the Secretary of State for the Ministry of Women's Affairs watched and gave the prizes at the end, and the Deputy British Ambassador in Cambodia also was involved at the end of the competition. So this gave a really unique platform to work collaboratively with policymakers in terms of the training and the judging of the students' work, and enabled me to have conversations that I would never have been able to have ordinarily in such a productive way, given that the ESRC DFID research was quite critical of the implementation and enforcement of domestic violence law.